Hey guys, so this is Sri. So in this video, I am going to explain about the load balancing using the Proxy SQL on the MySQL Asynchronous Replication. Okay, so we can use the Proxy SQL in different technologies like group replication, Galera, RDS instances. So for the different technologies, we can use the Proxy SQL. In this video, I am going to specifically show how the Proxy SQL load balancing is working on the MySQL asynchronous replication. Okay, so going forward, I will release the further videos on the different technologies. Fine. So first thing you may aware of about the Proxy SQL. The main purpose of the Proxy SQL is the load balancing. Okay, apart from that load balancing, we have many interesting features we have in the Proxy SQL. Okay, so mainly we are using the Proxy SQL for the load balancing, multiplexing, connection pooling, query routing, query rewriting purpose, query catching, and there is some firewall related features. We have a lot with the Proxy SQL. Okay, so what we are going to see in this video is we already have the source and replica setup, and we are going to install the Proxy SQL. And Proxy SQL, we are going to configure the Proxy SQL, and we are going to test the connection, then configure the load balancing. We are just going to, we have one master and one slave. During the test, we are just going to route all the select statement to the replica that we are going to see in the demo today. Okay, fine. So here I have three nodes. This is first one is the source. You can see the red terminal color for the source, and the next one is the replica. Here you can see which is in the green color, and the third one is the Proxy SQL. So I have chosen the dedicated node for the Proxy SQL to install the Proxy SQL. Proxy SQL is a lightweighted software. You can install the Proxy SQL in the application server to avoid some latency. Okay, so our architecture will be like this. So previously, without load balancer, our app will directly connect to database. Okay, so but when we are introducing any load balancing software in between the app and database, then the architecture will be like this. So for example, app Proxy SQL database. So app will connect to the Proxy SQL will connect to the database, then it will execute the query and retrieve the results, etc. Okay, fine. So if we have the Proxy SQL server in the app server, I mean, if we have the Proxy SQL installed in the app server, then we can avoid some latencies. If we have both in different server, then app need to connect to app connection need to travel to one server, from that server to it need to connect to the database server. So we are having the 3 server connection, right? We can install the Proxy SQL in the application server itself to avoid some latencies, the minimum latencies. Okay, fine. I did not install the Proxy SQL yet. I will show you how to install. So you can find the Proxy SQL packages from the GitHub. So just search like this, Proxy SQL release notes. Then just click the first link. Okay, there you can see all the releases, and you can find the different packages. Okay, fine. So the latest release of the Proxy SQL is 2.4.1, which was released on the 2022. I mean, the last month, 13th, it was released. This is the minor version. And if you come to little bit below, you can find the packages. Okay, so for me, I am using, I think, Ubuntu. Yeah, I am using Ubuntu 22. Okay, I am using the Ubuntu latest. So I am just trying to find the package for my OS. Yeah, here it is. Okay, so here I can see the Ubuntu 22. So I am just clicking, giving the right click and copy link address. Okay, I am just going to download directly in the server. Wget the link. I'm just pasting the link, and okay, it is downloaded. I just downloaded the Proxy SQL software. So this is the package. Now I'm going to install the Proxy SQL. dpkg-i package. Okay, so it is installed. Okay, let me verify. ProxySQL. Okay, so ProxySQL is installed. Okay, the version is 2.4.1. The next step is I need to start the ProxySQL service. Service ProxySQL status and checking the status. It is inactive, and I'm going to start the service. Okay, so the service is started. Here you can see it is active and running. Okay, fine. Now, after we started the ProxySQL service, here we have the config file ProxySQL.conf. By default, it will be under the /etc/ProxySQL CNF. And here you can find all the variables. Okay, ProxySQL variables. Here you can modify, and if you are doing the modification, then you need to restart the ProxySQL service to apply the variable. But in ProxySQL, there is one more feature. I would say I would call it as a feature. You can do all the changes, maximum of the changes, 90 to 95% of the changes you can do on the runtime. Okay, you don't need to restart your ProxySQL service. You can do in the runtime, and you don't need to touch the CNF as well. Okay, you can directly flush the changes to disk. So whenever you are doing the ProxySQL service restart, it will get the values from the disk, and it will be loaded. Okay, I will show you in the demo later. So just aware of this ProxySQL config. Okay, it will be under /etc/proxysql.cnf, and by default the data directory is varlib ProxySQL. Okay, so here you can see the ProxySQL related files. Okay, and here we have the ProxySQL log. Okay, the ProxySQL log will be verbosed for the debugging purpose. Now, netstat -i ProxySQL. So by default, you will ProxySQL, when you start the ProxySQL service, it will use two ports. Okay, one is the 6032 and the next one is the 6033. Okay, so the purpose of the 6032 is log in the admin module. Okay, to make the ProxySQL configuration. If you want to do some changes in the ProxySQL configuration, then you need to log in the admin model. For that, we can use the port 6032. And 6033 is used to connect the database. To make the database connection, we need to use the 6033. I will show you how to use both ports. Okay, using the ProxySQL config file. Here you can find some information like this is the data directory varlib ProxySQL. This is the error log, and the default username and password is admin and admin. Okay. So now let's log in the ProxySQL admin console. One more thing, to log in the ProxySQL, we need the MySQL client installed. Okay, we need to log in using the MySQL client protocol. I already installed the MySQL client here. So MySQL -h 127.0.0.1 -u admin -p admin and port capital P, which is 6032. Okay, 6032. Now I just logged in the ProxySQL. Here you can see the ProxySQL, which is admin module, server version, which is 5.5.30. Okay, now I just logged in the ProxySQL. Now show schemas. So these are the available databases in the ProxySQL. Here the main and stats both are very useful in the daily life. Okay, by default it will be choosing the main database only. You can just execute the show tables command and it will list all the tables under the main database. Okay, let me check this function is working or not. Okay. Okay, so the default one, which is admin. Okay, so just leave it. I think it is main, but it is showing admin fine. So here, by default, you can see all these tables. If you see the tables here, these are the tables. And for all the tables here, you can see the runtime configuration as well. Okay, for all the tables, you will see the runtime configuration. So what is the runtime? What is the purpose of this runtime tables? Means it will display the current status. Okay, what is the current status? I mean the runtime status. It will display the runtime status of the tables. Okay, you can use these tables for the configuration. If you see this here, you can see the dedicated table for the firewall whitelist rules and Galera host groups and group replication host groups, query rules and query rules fast routing and MySQL replication host groups and MySQL servers, MySQL users. Okay, so you have different tables. Okay, so now what are the tables we are going to use to configure the MySQL async replication load balancing? MySQL servers, that is the first one, and MySQL users, MySQL replication host groups, and MySQL query rules. Yeah, so these are the tables we are going to use for this configuration. Okay, the purpose of the MySQL underscore server table is we need to make the entry. What are the for the available servers? I have one source and one replica. So I need to make the entry here in the MySQL underscore servers table. MySQL users table is used to configure the application users. Okay, so for what are the users can be allowed to connect the database through the proxy SQL. Okay, so we need to whitelist the users in the MySQL underscore users table. And MySQL replication host groups means we will have the reader host group and the writer host group that we can define what is the reader host group and the writer host group. I will show you. And finally, the MySQL query rules, there you can define the query rule and where we need to route the query. Okay, now let's see one by one. The first one is a MySQL underscore server. Okay, show create table MySQL underscore servers. So if you see here, so here we have the host group ID, host name, port, status, weight, compression, max connection, replication lag, many things. Okay, now let's configure one by one. So this is my master node. My master IP is this one. And the replica node IP is this one. Okay, so this is replica and this is source. So here you can see the replication status. Show slave status in the replica node. Show slave status. You can see the replication is running. Okay, replication is running, and this is the source host. Fine. Now let's do the configuration here. Insert into MySQL underscore servers, and we are not going to enter all the columns. We are just going to make the entry for the required columns. Okay, host group ID, host name, port by default, which is 3306. If you have the different port, then you can make the entry. Okay, by default it will be 3306. Okay, then status and weight, we can do this configuration later, and max replication lag configuration also we can do this later. And okay, so far this is fine. Let me enter the max connections as well, and the values. Host group ID. Okay, so here we need to choose two IDs. One is the writer host group ID and next one is the reader host group ID. We can choose any number. So I am choosing writer 10 and reader is 20. Okay, reader is 20. So first I am going to make the entry for the source, which is master. So I need to enter the host group ID 10 here. Okay, 10. And this is the host name, master's IP, and status online. We have different status. Okay, online shunt, offline soft, offline hard. We have different status. We will see that in later. And max connection, how many connections to be allowed for the server? I'm just making 100 for now. Okay, that is fine for the testing. Okay, I just entered. Then again, I am going to make the entry for the replica node. Okay, for the replica, the reader. Okay, replica should be acted as a reader. The reader host group ID is 20. So I am changing 10 to 20 here. And here I need to put the replica node IP. Okay, so the replica node IP is 172.28.39. 39 and the state is online, max connection 100. Fine. I just made the insert here and now select store from MySQL underscore servers. Okay, so now we have this entries or in the MySQL underscore servers. Okay, so here this is the master host and this is the replica host, and here the host group ID is 10, which is the writer, and here the host group ID is 20, which is the reader. Okay, and both the status I just mentioned online now, and max connection also I put. Okay, by default the weight is 1. Now fine. Now we just mentioned that host group ID 10 and 12, right? Now we need to define the writer host group and the reader host group. Okay, so that where we need to define is, that is we have the table MySQL replication host groups. Okay, so here we need to define what is the writer host group ID and what is the reader host group ID. Okay, so here we have 4 columns. One is the writer host group, and next one is the reader host group, and next one is the check type. Check type means here we have the values like read only, InnoDB read only, super read only. We have these values, right? So it will check. I mean, I have one master and one slave. If I mention check type equal to read only, then my slave should be read only. Okay, then only it will check. Okay, these are the nodes are read only. I mean, enabled, read only enabled. Then it will consider that node as a reader. Okay, so in which variable to be used to identify the replica, we can tell in that way. For example, insert into MySQL replication host groups, writer host group, reader host group, and check type. So here values. So we know that we define the writer host group is 10 and the reader host group is 20 and check type is read only. Okay, we can make it as a read only for the check type. I will show this in later how this read only is detecting. Okay, I will show that later. Okay, fine. So now we entered select store from. Fine. So now we made, we assigned the reader host group and the writer host group, and we also defined the check type, which is read only. Okay, read only. It will check the read only variable. Okay. Now we made the changes in the 2 tables. One is the MySQL underscore servers, and the next one is the MySQL replication host group. Okay. So then we need to load. Once you made this configuration, it will not take effect in the ProxySQL. Okay. You need to load the changes. So how to load the changes means load MySQL servers to runtime. Okay, so once you executed this, this will affect the changes from the MySQL underscore servers as well as MySQL replication post groups. And also, if if the proxy SQL restart, we may lose the state values, right? So we need to persist the changes to disk by executing the command save MySQL servers to disk. Okay, so yeah, after we execute this command, the values will be persisted in the disk. So whenever the restart of the proxy SQL service happens, the values will be get from the disk. Okay, for example, in the MySQL, we are doing a set global, right? Set global some changes after we restart, the value will be reverted, right? If you don't have that for to persist a value, we need to use the my.cnf file. We need to make the entry there. So whenever the restart happens, it will pick the value from the my.cnf and it will be loaded during the restart, right? Here in Proxy SQL, we have the Proxy SQL config. We can use that. And also we have the other option, which is the save MySQL, save to disk. Okay. So in this scenario also, your changes will be stored in the disk. And whenever the Proxy SQL restart happens, it will get the values from the disk itself. Mostly we don't need to use the Proxy SQL config. Okay, fine. So now we, as I told, we just made the configuration on the MySQL underscore servers and also MySQL replication host groups. We just configure the servers and we assign the reader and writer host groups. Okay, the next step is, as I show here, our app is connecting the Proxy SQL and Proxy SQL is connecting the database, which is MySQL here. Okay, Proxy SQL is connecting the MySQL. So Proxy SQL should be aware whether the MySQL should be aware of the MySQL status. MySQL is alive or not, replication is running or not, replication lag is happening or not. So Proxy SQL need to monitor the MySQL. Okay, Proxy SQL need to monitor the MySQL status. Okay, so for that, Proxy SQL need the MySQL access. Okay, so where to define the MySQL access? So first thing, we can create one user. Let me create. This is in the master. I am creating one user. Create user proxy mon at giving the open host identified by and grant all on to flush privileges. Okay, fine. So I just created one user for the Proxy SQL monitoring. As I told here, Proxy SQL need to monitor the MySQL status. Okay, because your app is going to connect the Proxy SQL and Proxy SQL will frequently monitor the MySQL status and the replication status, whatever. Okay, so for that, Proxy SQL need the MySQL access. So that we created this user proxy underscore mon. Okay, we need to define this in the Proxy SQL. So here also we have the show variables command work. We have around 198 variables. So here we need to assign into pager graph -i username password. Okay, now let me execute this command. I'm just grabbing. Okay. So yeah, here MySQL monitor password and MySQL monitor username. Okay, so here we need to assign the username and password. We can just use the set command. Set MySQL monitor password is MySQL at 321. Enter. Set MySQL monitor username equal to proxy underscore mon. Let me verify. Proxy underscore mon. Okay, MySQL at 321. Fine. So yes. So similarly, we did the load MySQL servers to runtime and save MySQL servers to disk, right? Similarly, when we are making the changes in the variables, we need to execute load MySQL variables to runtime, save MySQL variables to disk. Okay, now I am checking the variables now. Okay, so this is assigned. MySQL proxy SQL to database monitoring credentials are assigned, which is MySQL monitor username, that is proxy_mon, and the MySQL monitor password, which is MySQL at 321. Okay, fine. So now we did 3 steps. Okay, first we configured the servers, source and replica in the MySQL_servers table. That is the first step we did. Here we configured the servers, master and slave. Then we did the assign the host group ID, writer and reader. Okay, so writer is 10, which is assigned for the master, and the 20 is the reader, which is assigned for the slave. Okay, and the third step, we created the user to monitor the MySQL from Proxy SQL, and we assign the credentials here by using the set command. We assign the MySQL monitor password and MySQL monitor username here, and that is also assigned. Okay, these are the 3 steps so far we done. Now select star from runtime MySQL servers. Okay, so we enable the monitoring, right? We assign the monitoring privileges. We enable the monitoring. So now you we made in the MySQL_servers, we only made 2 columns, 2 rows, right? One is for the master and another one is the reader. Now, if you see here, we have 3 rows. Okay, we have 3 rows in the runtime MySQL servers. Okay, the runtime MySQL servers currently showing we have 3 rows. Okay, so if you see here 172.28.0.197, 172.28.0.197. Okay, this both nodes are assigned for. This is the writer host group, which is host group ID 10 and host group ID 20, both. Okay, writer and reader. This is the master node. Currently, the master is assigned in the writer host group as well as reader host group. Okay, and this is the replica node. This is only assigned in the reader host group. Reader host group is 20. Okay, fine. Now, so currently the read only is enabled in the replica node. Now I am going to disable it. Set global read only equal to 0. Okay, now let's see the proxy runtime MySQL server status. If you see here, now we can see the 4 rows. Okay, 4 rows means you can see this master node is assigned to writer host group 10 and master node is assigned to reader host group 20, and the slave, the replica node is assigned to reader host group 20, and the replica node is also assigned in the writer host group. Okay, so this is what about we mentioned the check type, right, in the MySQL replication. Here show create table MySQL. So here we mentioned the check type, right? Check type as your read only. So here we mentioned check type as a read only. So currently, so it will check the read only variable. So currently it is disabled. So it is disabled. So it considers the replica as a writer node as well. So that we have 4 entries here. Your replica node is in the reader host group as well, host group ID 20, as well as writer host group ID 10. Okay. So now let me change it to 1. I just changed it to 1. I just enable the read only. Now let's see the runtime status. Now again we have the C. Now if we have 3. Now, if you see the replica node is only assigned in the host group ID 20, which is the reader. 20 is the reader host group. Okay, 20 is the reader host group. So now, as per the current setup, it is good. We enable the read only in the replica node, and if I check the runtime service status, my master node is available in both reader and writer host group, and my replica node is only available in the reader host group. So this is fine. So now we configure the things. The next step is we need to define, we need to whitelist the application users in the Proxy SQL. Okay, for that we have the dedicated table show create table MySQL users. Okay, so here we need to define what are the users can be connect the Proxy SQL from application. Okay, so let's create one new user. Create user app at open host identified by MySQL at 321. Grant all on to see actually yeah, flush privileges. See, actually here for this Proxy SQL monitor host, I provided the grant all on all the databases. Okay, I provided the complete privilege, but all the privileges are not needed. We can check the what are the privileges exactly needed. Then we need to provide. It is recommended to provide the needed privileges only. Okay, don't provide all the privileges here. Okay, we can check from the Proxy SQL website documentation itself. Okay. Now created the user. Now I need to make the entry here. Insert into MySQL users. Here also I am not going to update all the columns. I'm just going to update what are the columns needed. Username, password, active, default host group, then max connection. Okay, this is fine now. And values, username is app, the user I created now, and the password is MySQL at 321. And yes, active, yes. And default group, I'm just going to mention the writer host, which is 10, and max connection just 100. Fine. I just made this entry. Select star from MySQL underscore users. So the entry is there. Now again, I need to load this configuration. For the MySQL users table, I need to use the load MySQL users to runtime, save MySQL users to disk. Okay, so now this is the fourth step we did. So far what we did, we just added the servers in the MySQL underscore servers table. Then we assigned the host group ID, which is the reader and writer host group ID. And we also defined the check type, which is read only. And thirdly, we created the monitor user, and we assigned in the variables MySQL monitor password and MySQL monitor username. Then fourth, we created one application user, and we make that entry. We just whitelisted in the MySQL underscore users table. Okay, now we are good to test the connection using this app user. So for example, as I told before, we have two ports in the Proxy SQL, right? One is the 6032, which is to connect the module, admin module, and we have one more port, which is the 6033. That is for the app connections. Okay, now let's try to make the app connection. Host name -i. This is the Proxy SQL server IP. So here we are not running any MySQL. We are just running the proxy SQL in this host. Okay. So now let's try MySQL -h, the IP -p, which is the port is 6033, and -u, which is app, and -p, which is the password, MySQL at 321. Yes. So we just provided the connection string. So this is the host, Proxy SQL host, and this is the Proxy SQL IP 6033, and we provided the app. App is already whitelisted here, and I provided the password. Okay, of the app user. Fine. So now I am going to execute some queries. Create database 3. Okay, it is executed. Now create table 3.test id int. Okay, and next I am going to execute one insert into 3.test values 1. Okay, this is also executed. Now I am going to do one select star from 3.test. See the query and everything is executed fine. Okay, so I just executed through the Proxy SQL IP and Proxy SQL port, and I created one database 3, and I created one table which is test, and I made one insert which is value 1, and I provided the select. It is working. Now we can directly check the master node. So this is the master. If I check this master node, show schemas, 3 is there, use 3, show tables, test is there, select star from test, value is also there. So this is how we can make the connection through the Proxy SQL. Okay. So now what we did, we configured the master and slave, both servers in the Proxy SQL. Then we added the writer and reader host group. Then we configured the Proxy SQL monitoring. Then we whitelisted the app user. Then we may try to make the connection through the app user and using the 6033 port, and we try to execute some queries, which is working. Okay, now we tested the connection. Now the next thing is how to do the load balancing. Okay, we can do, we can check some stats here. Okay, so we have the stats database as well. Show databases. So here you can see the list of databases. Here you have one database which is called stats. Okay, you can list the tables using show tables from stats. It will list all the tables from the stats. So here you can see this table. Select store from. Okay, so select, let's simplify this output. Select host group, server host, and status, and queries from stats MySQL connection pool. Okay, so totally we executed 5 queries here, right? One create database statement, one create table statement, one insert statement 3, and one select 4, and another select, which is 5. Totally we executed 5 queries. Here you can see in this stats table, queries executed is 5. Okay, but if you see, all these queries are executed against the writer host group, which is 10. And this is the master. Okay, that create table statement, create database statement, insert statement executed in master, that is fine. We executed 2 selects, read queries as well, but that is also executed in the writer host. Okay, writer host, which is the 10, and the host is master host. Okay, all the 5 queries are executed here. So why it is executed all the queries are here means we don't have the proper query rules yet. Okay, so let's define the query rule. Okay, for that we have another table which is show create table MySQL query rules. Actually, this is quite big table. We can do many things with this query catching, that all the things, most of the things we can do this, and we can also do the filter based on the username database. Okay, we have a lot of purpose, but now we are just trying to achieve the load balancing. I mean, the select query. If there is any select query, that need to go to the replica node. I mean the reader host root. Okay, that is what we are trying to achieve here. So let's make that insert into MySQL query rules. So first one, rule ID, which is needed, and active, which is needed, and username, schema name, we can skip those values, and pattern, match pattern. We can also match the queries with the digest output as well. Now we see about the match pattern. Okay, match pattern, then destination host group. Okay, so if the pattern is matched, then which host group the query need to go, that we will define in the destination host group. Then finally apply. Okay, now let's define the values. Rule ID, it is a rule number 1. Then active, yes, active 1, and match pattern. Okay, so our motto is whatever queries are starting with the select, all the select queries need to be go to reader. Okay, reader host group. Okay, so we can start with this select space dot star. Okay, so this symbol will define the starting point. Okay, this up arrow define the starting point. Then select after a space dot whatever values after this, that will be routed to the destination host group. The meaning is whatever queries are starting from select will be routed to the destination host group 20. Destination host group is 20 and apply is 1. Fine. So I just made this rule. So 20 is our reader host group. So we are just trying to split all the queries, all the select queries to the reader. Okay. Now here we need to load the changes. Load MySQL query rules to runtime. Save MySQL query rules to disk. Okay, we we did this, and we can check this output as well. Okay, now there is no queries for the 20, which is the reader output. Now let's execute some queries and see. I'm executing select star from test3.txt. Okay, so I executed 2 selects. Now let's see the output of this table, stats table. Okay, so now still, if you see here, we executed 2 selects, but still the 2 selects are going to this host group. Okay, host group, it is as per our select configuration. It is now executing in the reader host group only. That is fine. It is come to, you can see the increment in the reader host group. Okay, which is 20. But still, if you see, this is the master node, right? The increment is happening in the reader host group. That is fine. But still, the query select is executing in the master node. So the slave is not utilizing it, right? So that how we can try to do this by configuring the wait. For example, select star from MySQL underscore servers. Okay, so what I am telling is, before having the query rules, all the queries are executed in the writer. Create, insert, select, everything was executed in the writer. There is no queries or written in the reader host group, right? After we configured the query rules, what happens? We executed two selects. Now the selects are executing in the reader host group, okay, which is 20 is the reader host group. You can see the increment here, but still the writer node is, I mean the master node is available in the reader host group and the writer host group, right? So we can see the increment is happening in the master node only, but that is in the reader host group we see the increment based on our query rules. Still the replica node, this one is not still getting utilized. So what I am trying to do is I am just going to configure the wait. Okay, update MySQL underscore servers set wait. I'm just going to increase the weight on the replica node. Then let's see how it is behaving. Okay, I just made weight equal to 100, where host name equal to, this is the replica node IP. Oh, okay, I have the typo. Update. Okay, now as I told, after changing the table, we need to load the configuration. Save MySQL servers to this. Servers to disk. Okay, so now let's execute some select and we can see how it is working. Okay, so I just increased the weight here. If you see the replica node weight is 100. Okay, it is higher number compared than the other two configuration. So let's see this output now. Connection pool. Now you can see the increment in the 5 here, and here we have 2, and the replica node don't have any value, which is 0. Now let's execute some select again. I just executed 5 selects and we can check this output again. Now if you see, after we increase the weight for this replica node, you can see the queries are being written. The selects, we executed all of the selects. The selects are executing in the highly weighted node, which is the replica node. Okay, let's do one more select. To select edit. If I am checking, here you can see the increment in the say 7. In the replica node. So what it is telling, whatever selects currently we are executing, based on the query rule configuration, it is going to the reader host group, and based on the weight configuration, it is going to the replica. Now we completely routed all the select statements to the replica node. Okay, so this is how we can configure the load balancing. I mean, how to write the selects to the replica. So instead of pushing all the loads to your master, if you split the queries, split the selects to the replica nodes, you are just reducing some load from the master, right? You are just splitting the load among the nodes. Okay, so using this, we can achieve this using the Proxy SQL by configuring the proper query rules. And we have some queries like select for update. That queries need to be run in the master. That we can make the query rules depend on our needs. If you want to execute some join queries in some particular server, that is also possible. Okay, so based on our requirement, we can do the Proxy SQL query rules configuration, and we can achieve what we want. Okay, so going forward, I will do some videos related to the query rules configuration as well. Okay, fine. So hopefully this video is helpful to understand the basic how to configure the Proxy SQL for the asynchronous MySQL replication, and how to do the split the queries, how to do the load balancing between the source and replica. So if you like this video, just share with your friends as well. If you have any questions or doubts or comments or concerns, whatever, any feedback, just share in under the comment section, or directly reach me and to share. Okay. And subscribe my channel if you did not subscribe yet, and share with your friends. We'll see you in 2 days with the next video. Bye guys. Thank you.